This is Solve It for Kids.
Hello, my amazing and curious friends. My name is Jennifer, the Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, and this is Solve It for Kids, the podcast that gives kids and families a peek inside the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts as they solve problems in their jobs using creativity, cooperation, and critical thinking. And now please welcome to the show my podcast partner, Galactic Space Geek, Jeff Gagne.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, listeners. Today, we've got an episode that I guarantee every single person listening has thought about this once, but then we've probably never figured out the answer. We just let it trail off. Today, we got the answer.
That is so true. That's so true. So what problem are we solving today?
How do birds fly?
How do birds fly? I mean, a simple question, but there's a lot more to this than we think. And who is the guest today that's going to explain all this, Jeff?
Our guest today has all the information and in a super informative way.
Yes.
Today we have Alex Troutman, wildlife biologist and science communicator.
Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me.
We are so thrilled to have you, and we're going to get to talk to you about what Jeff said, like birds, which are everywhere and really cool to watch. Like, I've discovered them kind of in the last couple of years. So what I'm wondering is, were you one of those kids that always, like, watched birds?
Yes, I always watch birds.
Wow.
To get started, like, I would be fishing with my dad and brothers and uncles, and I would actually be more interested in the birds that was fishing alongside me, like great blue herons. They would outfish me. But my favorite bird that I loved to see at that time was the red-tailed hawk. And I would see it flying, and I got to see the glow of the sun like shining through the red tail. And
Wow.
Yeah, and that now is my spark bird. But at the time, I didn't know what a spark bird was. But that was the bird that got me interested into nature and wanting to learn more about birds.
Oh, that's so cool.
Hawk.
Okay. And I just learned right now what a spark bird is.
Yeah.
I did not know that's what that was. So now we all know. That's super cool. And I want to ask, did you ever see a bird, like as you were out there fishing, did you see birds actually nabbing fish while you were watching?
Oh, yes. The great blue heron, it's a wading bird, and it was taking fish like almost right beside me, like it was laughing at me too. It'll get a fish and like, ha, I got another one. You have nothing.
Well, I have to say, I used to go fishing with my family when I was a kid, and I'm the only girl, and so all my brothers love fishing, and I would read instead of fishing because I'm just not a big fisher person, right? And so that would have been nice I would have watched the birds, right? Instead of reading, because that would have been science. But so I'm curious, how did you take your loves of bird watching as a kid kind of into what you do today?
Yeah, so for me, it became a roundabout way. I was really interested in animals for a while, but I really didn't see anyone who looks like me working with animals besides being a vet or a farmer. So I thought it would be a vet, and I went to school to be a vet, and then I decided to change my major because being a vet, it takes a lot of a strong brain and a lot of mental skills that I didn't want to go through. So I
Understand?
Yeah, so I switched my major to middle grades education and my minor in biology. And during that time, I went outside for one of my classes. It was a field biology class, which basically means we go outside and do field work. And it was ornithology, which is the study of birds.
Oh,
okay.
So, yeah.
And you were hooked then, right?
I was, yes. I got to go birding twice a week because we had a lab one day a week.
Wow.
But twice a week, we got to go to different birding spots around our town and in my college. And I got to see my favorite duck, the wood duck, which
Oh.
is beautiful. It has like a mohawk and it has like green and red feathers.
Cool.
The males do, and that's my favorite bug. And that's what really got me back into like birding. And then I was like, I could be outside studying animals, especially birds, and get paid to do it. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Right,
Yeah, that's a dream job.
Yes, exactly. That's how it was. So I switched my major back literally like the next week. And I was like, I'm going back to biology.
That's fantastic.
I like that. So I have never been a birder. I, like Jen, like watching the birds just sort of randomly. How do you pick a birding spot? You just mentioned that as
that's a good
college.
question.
Like, is that just somebody that knows more about birds in your area, knows the best places to go? Or how do you do that?
Yeah, so it's a mix of everything. So there are different apps that tell you like birding hotspots where some cool birds are going to be at. So you can go follow those apps. Or for me, I go to my favorite like hiking spots. And I know I'm guaranteed to see some birds there. So I go there and I see the birds that I'm interested in. And then if I want to see something cool or new, I'll look up the app and say, okay, there's a white-throated sparrow at this place. So I'll go find that white-throated sparrow. But many times I'm just going birding to parks that I'm used to in my yard. There's not really set like plans to say, hey, I'm going to go here every time look for a bird. But it's really, for me, it's really just about being outside. And while I'm outside, I do a lot of birding.
But it seems like you've taken it a little further because we're kind of talking about how do birds fly. So what have you learned about that by doing all this research on all the birds?
Yeah, I learned birds fly, and it's very fascinating. For me, I look at the way that they are shaped. So if you look at birds, you notice some things about them. They don't have teeth like us.
All right.
So that's one thing. So having teeth, that means you're lighter. But also something you can't really see is their bones are like modified hollow. So they don't have like the dense bone marrow that we have. So that's also a form of weight reduction. If you look at them, they have feathers. We don't have feathers. So that's another thing that aid them in flying is their feathers. And then there are other organs that are reduced that allow them to fly as well. And then looking at birds, like a lot of them, they have strong like chest muscles that allows them to flap. Those are some big reasons that birds are able to fly is their weight reduction. So the lack of teeth, the hollow bones, and then also like they gave up some of their organs that allow for like extra waste to come out. So they have one, they have a lot of weight reductions, and then the feathers that catches air and helps them to fly as well. And then to go from there, when you notice when you're looking at a bird, like the smaller birds, they can just take off with their feet. But other birds that are a little bit thicker, like geese, they actually get like a somewhat running start and flapping their wings, kind of like an airplane, to get up in the air to achieve that lift. So when birds are getting in the air, that's called lift. So they're using their feathers, they're flapping their wings, and then running to get kind of get a takeoff like an airplane.
Well, and they kind of put their necks out too, don't they? To kind of help them. Yeah, I've noticed that. We have lots of geese here in Florida. And they stretch their necks out?
Right, yeah, they stretch their necks out. And then also another way, if you looking at like birds, like their head is not really like super round like ours, and their body isn't blocky. They're more like streamlined, or like they're more aerodynamic, so they can cut through the air. Whereas if there was more blocky, they would not be able to cut through the air. It would kind of like hold the air or block the air. So the air can move around them because they're more streamlined, aerodynamic.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So with all different types of birds, from the small to the big, all of their wings are just a little bit differently shaped.
Yeah.
Is that based on the fact that that's how they've evolved, based on how big they are, how heavy they are, so that species of bird can fly?
Yeah, so it's based on how big they are, and also like areas they live in, and what their prey item is, or how the mode of flight they are. So Hummingbirds, they're
Okay.
not going to have giant wings to flap. They have to flap their wings like so many, like 1,000 beats per second. So obviously they're not going to have big wings like hogs. And then also like soaring birds are not going to have small wings. They won't be able to soar. So their wing shape is based on what their movement is and also what food that they will be eating.
Oh, okay. So
Never thought about the types of flying.
Yeah. I've also heard that birds don't like to fly in the rain.
It depends on the bird, but also you don't want to get like weighted down with all the water.
Oh,
So
is that what it is?
if you'll see like some birds that'll be out of the rain hiding, but you'll see like ducks and other whitewater birds.
That's true. Okay.
They'll be on the water because they actually have like special like oils and feathers that help them to be somewhat waterproof, or at least water resistant, that allows them to be in the rain, so they don't really mind it. Where other birds are like, nah, I'm gonna hide up under this leaf.
So it's kind of like, does the rain like add weight to their feathers and then make it harder for them to fly or something?
It can, yes.
Yeah, because I saw that somewhere. I don't know, one of the books I was writing, I was like, that's a pretty cool fun fact. Like, I didn't know that. And then I started thinking about it in the rain, and I'm like, I haven't seen many birds, like, when it rains. Also, It's probably because there's wind sometimes too, right? And the wind can be crazy for the birds.
Exactly, yes.
So as a wildlife biologist, what are you doing in terms of, like, are you researching certain types of birds? Are you trying to learn something specific about them?
Yeah, so my research for my master's was actually looking at the insects and other soft-bodied organisms called arthropods that birds eat on one of the barrier islands off the coast of Georgia. So I was looking at what they eat and comparing that to what's available for the birds to feed on. But as a wildlife biologist, what I'm looking at now is basically like, I'm looking at when are birds migrating in and out of an area, and how, as the habitat is changing, how new species are either coming back into that area or are leaving that area. So birds that utilize grasslands are not going to stay in the area that has now become heavily wooded, and vice versa. If we are cutting down the forest or thinning the forest, those birds that are like wooded species and forest species are not going to utilize grassland areas now. So that's what my research is looking at, or my work as a wildlife biologist is looking at those species. And then also it's just looking at quantifying or seeing how many different birds, for instance, doing waterfowl banding for wood ducks is basically just saying how many is left or how many are there for the population as we go into different seasons for each of the wood ducks or also Canada geese. Those are actually pretty cool because like we get to put like bands on them.
Yeah.
Like a little piece of jewelry that tells us where they have been and where they come from like each year if we find them again.
Are they hard to catch?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I'll start with waterfowl. So for waterfowl, depending on the species, so for Canada geese, what we do is we put up giant nets on the land, and then we use kayaks and canoes and like corral them into the net from the lake. So we just kind of close in a circle little by little. And surprisingly, a lot of them, they don't fly off. They just like keep swimming. And then once they're on land, they walk right into the net. So that's how we do it.
Well, and none of this hurts them, right?
None of it hurts them at all. And then for the like other waterfowl, for like wood ducks, we use giant nets. So with them, we bait a area for them to come in, and while they're migrating, it's like, some corn or wheat, and then they come down. So we bait it for a couple of weeks, and then we start introducing like, it's not a fake net, an old net. So they get used to the net being there. And then after a couple of days, we'll actually put out a real net. And with those, it's really cool because we use like rockets to like launch the net up. So we'll be sitting in a blind, which is like kind of like a hiding spot.
Right.
So we hide behind the blind, and we have a push button for the rockets to go off. So when there's a lot of ducks on the bait pile, we shoot the rockets that goes off and over them.
Oh, that's
and then
cool.
It, like captures them. Then we can pull them out one by one and put them in some baskets, and then we can look at them. And then for songbirds, passerines, which are songbirds and perching birds.
Okay.
With those, we set up giant nets called mist nets. We put those in like different flyways that they're going to be in. So different habitat areas that are going to be in throughout the day. So we wake up early in the morning and set up those nets under the cover of darkness. And then every 15 minutes, once we start doing our net runs, we try to do them every 15 minutes to see what birds have flew into the net. And then we extract them or take them out the net and kind of look at their feathers or their plumage. We're able to tell what species it is.
Okay.
And also if it's male or female.
Okay.
And then if it's juvenile or not.
Right.
Once we have that information, they'll get a little tiny band on their legs, and then we'll let them go. And then if we catch them again the next year, we'll be able to tell
if
where
they
came
grew,
from
right?
and how they
Yeah.
are.
You look at if they grow, if they're healthy, all that kind of stuff. That's good.
So if they grew, how much they weigh, and then with migratory birds, we're seeing how much fat they have. You can actually tell how much fat a bird has if you blow on its like feathers, like it'll lift up and you can see the fat layer up under its skin. And that's let us know. Yeah, and that lets us know if it has like recently migrated or if it's getting ready to migrate, because they still have those fat reserves.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Never thought of that.
No.
So you find a bird, you blow on it, and you're like, all right, Tweety, you're a little chubby. Time for you to migrate. I had no idea that you guys were gathering that much data when you are researching these birds. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So as you are doing this, what then do you do with that data? Are you sharing that with other scientists? Like, what happens there?
Yeah, so it depends on the area. For me, with federal agencies, we all send it off to a national area that does all the information, then send it back out. But for others, it depends on the project. Some of it's like a long-term study. So you're looking at all those, and then you will share with other scientists, and some of it like it's a short term, so it's just for like research purposes. So eventually you will still share. So all the data is eventually shared at some point. It just depends on when and like who is getting the data.
Yeah. So are you seeing any specific trends? Like, are you seeing like more birds than you were before or less birds than you were before?
That's a trick question.
Okay.
So for some species, there is definitely a decline in the bird species.
Okay.
And for others, there is a uptake. And some of them are just been maintaining. But overall, there's definitely a decrease in especially some birds throughout the world for various reasons.
Is it kind of losing habitat or climate change or a whole bunch of different things?
A whole bunch of things. So the loss of habitat, climate change, urban development, a lot of birds migrating, buildings. Also our pets and having domesticated animals outside. Cats. Cats are definitely terrorizer for many.
Cats and birds don't mix happily.
Yes.
So the cartoons weren't lying to us.
Right.
No, not at all. Yes.
Okay.
So it's a lot.
Cool. So you have talked about a bunch of different things already, and you mentioned the wood ducks, which I love those. Those are cool. Those are very cool looking creatures. Is there a species of bird that you have not yet studied up close that you would like to?
Yes. So, this is not really studied, but I would love to see like penguins in the wild. I have not seen penguins in the wild yet.
Me too.
So,
penguins.
I'll go with you.
Yes. So like I want to see. There's some I think I forget their name. Like there's some type of jungle penguin in like New Zealand. I think it's like Fiordland, but I'm not sure. But they live like in the jungles of New Zealand.
Wow.
I want to see those, and then also I definitely want to see like all the penguins that live in the Antarctic.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah,
You caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting penguin. I like that
Yeah.
answer.
Penguins are cool.
They're one of my favorite birds, and it's because like I like to dress up, and they're kind of like wearing tuxedos, and then like they're like I don't know. I feel like they're like party animals, or like to have fun. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in a tuxedo, but let me go slide down
nice
hill. So I don't know. I feel like one day I want to do that. It's like go to like a fancy like tuxedo dinner and then just whip out like a slip and slide and just go down there.
Oh my god, that would be fun. So Ed, my husband and I went to see in Orlando, and we did a behind the scenes encounter, and we got to meet 2 rockhopper penguins and a king penguin. And the king penguin like strutted around like this. It was amazing. And their king penguins are tall, like taller than you would think. They're like what, 2-3 feet? I mean, they're tall, and it was amazing. So I also have to ask you: do you keep track of how many birds you've seen?
Yes. So I just recently like started doing it because at first I was like just like looked at birds and I wasn't seeing that. But now I was like, well, I need to start keeping a track of them. So like different species, like I have seen over 600 like different species of birds.
What?
But yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's fantastic.
Oh my goodness. That's super cool.
Yeah. Most of them came in the last 2 years because I went to Costa Rica and Australia.
Oh yeah, where they have like a big diversity of birds there. Yeah.
Okay.
So I seen a lot of different species, but I've probably seen over like birds in general altogether over like 300,000.
Whoa.
Just through like different migrations and working with them.
Oh my goodness.
You must like birds. Huh?
I do. I really do.
So Jennifer and I have learned that birders have what they call a big year.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You decide there's going to be a calendar year. You're going to try to see more birds than you've ever seen in a 365 or 66 day year. Is a big year on Alex Troutman's schedule of something to happen?
It is. So I'm going to plan that actually for next year. I'm turning 35 and there's a destination that I'm planning on going. So I'm going to try to make that my big year.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, I think that
we
will
will
be
have
fun.
to check back in with you and see how you do.
Oh, definitely, yes.
And for the big year, for anybody that doesn't remember from one of our previous episodes, that's like finding how many different species you see in a year, right?
Yes.
Not the number of birds you see.
Right, yes. How many different species you see.
Wow.
So do you have like a number in mind for how many you want to try and see in a year?
I want to see, I don't know, this is like 477.
Okay.
All right. Any reason on that number?
Well, 77 is like my favorite number, and then 400 is like forever. So add those together.
Okay.
Hey, that makes sense. I think
I like it.
I think that, you pick whatever number you want. We've had birders who wanted to have 1,000, I think.
Something like that.
They've made 500 or 600. I mean, it just kind of depends. It also depends how much time you have to do this.
Yeah,
right?
Time,
477, that's already, if you average it, that's already more than one a day.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And money is also a factor, depending on where you go to see and all the different species.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This has been so fun. So we're kind of at the point in the show where I ask our guests to give our listeners a challenge. So what is your challenge, Alex? I'm very curious.
So my challenge is to make a bird, but we're not really going to make a bird. We're going to make paper airplanes.
Okay.
So we're going to make paper airplanes and see how far we can throw them. And then after we see how far the paper airplane was thrown, we're going to try to modify it as if it was a bird. So we're going to add things that we can find around our house, like tape, stickers, paper clips, to see how if we add weight to different parts of the paper airplane, how that affects how far it flies or the way that it flies.
Oh, I like
Okay.
that. And
I
so,
like that they have to do it more than once and then compare what's going on.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. That's what scientists do.
I was gonna say it's like doing real science, right? That's
Yes.
that, and then also maybe like it'd be cool is if they kind of went outside and tested when it was windy, right? Because that's what I find interesting is how the birds have to kind of fly differently when it's windy, right? You see
Yes.
them glide more or higher, or
Right, exactly. That would be an interesting thing to try.
oh my gosh. Well, this has
I
been so
like
much,
that.
right? Like, I have learned so much about birds, and I hope all of you go out and do this challenge because this will be fun. In fact, I might do this on a windy day. What do you think, Jeff?
I agree. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do this on a windy day. Well, thank you so much, Alex. This has been so awesome. Thank you for being on Solve It for
Thank
Kids.
you, Alex.
You guys are welcome. Thanks for having me. It was great to talk to y'all.
I love knowing this much more about how birds are flying and sort of the mechanics and that natural engineering that is happening across different species because birds are such a variety of species, different sizes, different wing sizes and shapes. What did you think, Jen?
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. And I mean, I was kind of floored by how many birds and how much time Alex has spent all of these years watching all these birds. That to me is so amazing, but also it just shows his love of wildlife. Like, he really, really enjoys what he does and he wants to share it with everyone. And I absolutely loved his challenge because I love looking at birds. I mean, I love engineering. So when you think about the physics behind how the birds fly and then test that's gonna be so fun, right, Jeff?
Totally. Paper airplanes connected with birds, and once again, we have another fantastic guest that brought us a challenge that's a little challenging. It's not just make a paper airplane, toss it across your living room, and boom, you're done. He has got make a paper airplane, think of it like a bird, and see how far it will fly first, and then make some additions to it. Add a little bit of weight with paper clips, or maybe even just adding stickers onto it. What a clever idea right there. Then, not just see the distance that it flies, but also notice and watch how it flies differently. I love this. Can't wait to see if our listeners do this challenge and share it with us.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many different things that you can play with there. You can play with weight, you can play with angle of the wings and the nose and all of these different things. So if you do this, we would love to see this. Tag us on our social media. We're at KidsSolve at Facebook, X, and Instagram. And don't forget to check out our website, solveforkids.com, where we'll have more information about Alex and the birds that he loves watching. And we always have a list of books for anybody who's interested in learning more. So go out and have fun designing your own bird.
Oh, sorry, listeners and Jen, that was just me collecting different kinds of paper, because that's another way I'm going to test how birds fly. Until next time, you'll hear Jen and Jeff on
Solve It for Kids.